Could Mercury Steam be developing the rumored Metroid Fusion sequel? Welcome everyone, this is Honest Restart, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Could Mercury Steam be the team that is behind this rumored 2D Metroid game that supposedly will be coming out this year and is supposedly somehow related to Fusion? It may end up actually being a Metroid Fusion remake as opposed to a sequel, but those are the two ideas that are being talked about right now, so that's what we're going to be focusing on this video, talking about who's behind this game, is it happening, when is it happening, and what it will be. Now before we jump into things, I first want to quickly talk about my social media. There's a Twitter page, a Discord community, a Patreon page, and a Twitch channel. If you're interested in any of that, please check it all out. It is linked in the description below. Now the first thing I think we should talk about is these rumors suggesting that there will be a 2D Metroid this year. Why do we think there's going to be a 2D Metroid? Well, there's a few different reasons. One, Metroid Samus Returns came out back in 2017. We're in 2020, it's been about 3 years, that's more than enough time for a new 2D Metroid game to be made. And to be clear, when I say 2D Metroid, I don't mean sprite-based like Super Metroid or Metroid Fusion, but actually more along the lines of Metroid Samus Returns. That actually had 3D graphics, but of course, it was a side-scrolling game. And I anticipate that this game will look amazing. Going back to 2019, there were already some rumors talking about there being 3 different Metroid games in development. Metroid Prime 4, which is out in the open, that is public knowledge Nintendo is working on Metroid Prime 4, but also the supposed Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, which according to several different sources was held back due to the delay of Metroid Prime 4, which I think kinda makes sense, but also a third Metroid game, a 2D Metroid game. And then later on, we got another rumor from Sabby, who has been known to get a lot of things correct, that apparently has legitimate sources, and he was saying that there would be a new Paper Mario game and a new 2D Metroid game that would be related to Fusion coming out this year. And what's really interesting about that, looking back at it now, we already know about this new Paper Mario game, Paper Mario the Origami King. But you see, what's really cool about this, when we got that first initial trailer for Origami King, at the very end, there was Paper Mario running around in a Samus helmet. A lot of people feel like, myself included, that that was teasing something related to Metroid. Now I feel it's important to note that this could just be a nod, that is possible, but considering the history of Metroid and just how much importance it seemed to have, I do feel like it was an intentional nod, especially considering that the producer for Paper Mario is Kensuke Tanabe, the same producer for the Metroid Prime series. But then of course you could also argue, maybe he was simply teasing Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, or Metroid Prime 4, or simply reminding fans that he's also still working on Metroid. That is a possibility. It's also possible that maybe he would want to throw in a Metroid tease there, because simply talking about Metroid, bringing up the Metroid series is important leading up to the release of Metroid Prime 4. My personal opinion is that this year, the rumors will prove to be true, and we will get a really awesome 2D Metroid game, maybe a Metroid Fusion sequel, and then later on, perhaps early next year, we will get an announcement for Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, and it will also be pretty impressive. Maybe it'll be kind of like a definitive edition for the Metroid Prime Trilogy series, and then eventually we will get Metroid Prime 4, and these games will lead into each other, and there will be a lot of talk and hype and excitement for the Metroid series as a whole. Getting back to my point though, considering how long it's been since Samus Returns, and the different rumors we've been getting, and that part of those rumors have already been proven to be true with Paper Mario, so now the other side of it will be this 2D Metroid game, it does seem like there's a pretty good chance that this could actually be the case. But it gets even more interesting when you look into what was going on with Metroid Samus Returns around when it was coming out. Yoshio Sakamoto, the producer for Metroid Samus Returns, has already said that he loved the experience of making Metroid Samus Returns and would love to make another. So Sakamoto's already on the record for wanting to make another Metroid game, but desire alone isn't enough. Sales definitely was questionable with Samus Returns, so we are not entirely sure if Nintendo greenlighted another Metroid game. But I think it's fair to point out that Metroid Samus Returns came at the end of the 3DS lifecycle. When the Switch was already out, there's a lot more excitement for the Switch. I do personally feel that Samus Returns on the 3DS was not really the best idea. It would have been a lot better had it come out on the Nintendo Switch. It wasn't really put into the best environment to perform in terms of sales, but a new Metroid game, especially considering all these starred fans, would definitely do really well on the Nintendo Switch. So many other franchises have done really well on the Nintendo Switch. A series like Metroid, which has quality and is discussed quite a bit throughout the internet, where there's definitely a lot more awareness now than there used to be, I think has a great chance to succeed. So even if the sales for Samus Returns weren't as great as they could potentially be, I think considering how well things can perform on Switch, this project may still have been greenlighted. And I think you guys might find this excerpt from Game Informer to be quite interesting. With all of Nintendo's internal studios busy with other projects, Sakamoto needed to find a development team that could tackle his dream project. Fortunately, one studio had been pounding on Nintendo's door with a Metroid pitch. After finishing work on a few Castlevania projects for Konami, the Madrid-based developer Mercury Steam pitched Nintendo on the idea of remaking Metroid Fusion, the 2002 GBA title where Samus got infected with a parasite organism. Sakamoto was impressed with the studio pitch and their love for Metroid. He told them no, they couldn't remake Metroid Fusion, but he did need their help on another remake, and that other remake was Metroid Samus Returns. So the development team, who was behind Metroid Samus Returns, which in terms of reviews, reviewed very well, the project came out very nicely in terms of how well the game played, it was a very good game. Their initial desire was to make a remake for Metroid Fusion. Instead, they remade Metroid 2, and the producer has already come out and said, on the record, that he wants to work on another Metroid game. Considering the rumors we have now that talk about a Metroid Fusion related game, it does kind of make sense for Mercury Steam, who's already proven themselves to make a good Metroid game, to work on some sort of Fusion related project for this year. I think it's all adding up. But I think the case for a Metroid Fusion related game made by Mercury Steam becomes far more compelling when you look into the teases we saw within the actual game for Metroid Samus Returns. So firstly, there are these pieces of concept art that you can see in Metroid Samus Returns, and they tell a story of how the Chozo genetically engineered the Metroids to combat the X-Parasite, and then later on, the Metroids started becoming too powerful and they had to lock them away, and that was basically the story for Metroid Samus Returns, where Samus had to come into the world and annihilate all the Metroids. But there is this other scene that when all read in, it had a little 2D sign, and it showed another Chozo race coming in to quote-unquote help, but what they actually did, as it seemed, was murder all the Chozo that were there. So these pieces of art that we saw in Metroid Samus Returns could have been teasing something else related to the Metroid Fusion story. Maybe not specifically Metroid Fusion, but some sort of story surrounding it. But what makes things even more interesting, there is an endgame cutscene where we see an X-Parasite take over an enemy. The X-Parasite, which is from Metroid Fusion, and keep in mind, the Metroids were genetically engineered to hold back and take care of the X-Parasites, but once Samus annihilates all of them, or most of them, guess what happens? The X-Parasite is no longer going to be held back by the Metroids. Considering the history of teases at the end of Metroid games like Metroid Prime 3 Corruption and also Metroid Prime Federation Force, I do feel like this was more likely a tease towards something. It could have just been a nod towards Fusion, but it may have been more. Considering these different teases within Samus Returns, the rumors we've gotten, the timing of things, the desire by the producer to make another Metroid game, and Mercury Steam's development success of Metroid Samus Returns when it comes to quality, when you put all these things together, it does seem like it could very well be the case that Mercury Steam may be developing this rumored 2D Metroid game that could very well be coming out on the Nintendo Switch this year. Now, there's been some discussion on whether this game is going to be some sort of remake for Super Metroid, or it's going to be a remake for Metroid Fusion, or just a sequel to Metroid Fusion. Well, first I'll just say I really doubt it's a remake for Super Metroid. Why? Because Super Metroid, of all the different Metroid games that could be remade, I feel like it's one that doesn't really need it as much as others. Not to mention, the source of this initial rumor where it was discussed that it would be Super Metroid that would be remade is from Leaky Pandy, and in my opinion, Leaky Pandy does not have a very good track record. They've gone a lot of things wrong. To just name a few examples, they were saying that Skull Kid would be an actual playable character in Smash Ultimate, and that was not the case. My point is they don't have the strongest of records compared to other leakers, such as Sabby, for example, or Eurogamer, or VentureBeat. These sources have repeatedly given us information and have been right about it. So because the other rumors have proven to be more reliable, and I also just don't think it would be a good design choice to remake Super Metroid, I'm going to side with the argument that this rumored 2D Metroid is going to be something related to Fusion. Now, could it be a remake or will it be a new game? Mercury Steam has been on the record for wanting to make an actual remake for Metroid Fusion, so maybe they'll get what they actually want and remake Metroid Fusion. I think that's entirely possible, and that would very much be enjoyable. However, the rumors have not been clear-cut if this is going to be a Metroid Fusion sequel or a remake, so there's a possibility that it may not be a remake, it may actually be a sequel. Not to mention, when we look at the teases of Metroid Samus Returns, it seems like those teases are suggesting something more to the story for Metroid Fusion, and more to the story, in my opinion, suggests not a remake, but something beyond that, a sequel to Metroid Fusion, which would be Metroid 5. I think. yeah, I mean, Metroid Fusion is Metroid 4, so I would say a sequel to Fusion could pretty fairly be considered Metroid 5. Of course, I feel I should say that this is all rumor, this is speculation, we do not know what's gonna happen, but if I had to make any bets, I would say that this year, we will see an announcement for a Metroid game, and I do feel like of all the Metroid games that could come out this year, the most likely candidate would be a new 2D Metroid game. Then maybe later down the road, we'll get Prime Trilogy, and then eventually Metroid Prime 4. And regardless of what Metroid we get, I'm gonna be pretty happy because I want Metroid, I love Metroid, and I think there's some serious potential here for some really good games. But those are my thoughts on the matter, guys. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.